That is dangerous. Good morning. In today's day and age, apologies to those who's going to get dressed people in the room. Sorry. So, I'll occasionally glance. How long do I have? Whatever. Don't tell about that. Okay. Firstly, lovely to be back in Edgware United, and Chodesh Tov to everybody. We find ourselves in a very bizarre time in history. Again, not that I've lived that long, but certainly in my short 51 years of my life, I don't think I've ever known a period where the Western world is so confused, so completely, in many ways, directionless. And when we've had our third prime minister in the space of weeks, and that's just the UK. The EU is not exactly much better. America is busy collapsing into civil war. Israel's having its fifth election in 3 weeks. It's a confusing, complicated world. And again, we're trying, obviously, with Parsha Shavua, to try and make sense of it, or try to understand a little bit more what's going on. And I think, as always, I can take my inspiration from Rabbi Sachs, because Rabbi Sachs always had an incredible ability to understand and to see the world through the eyes of the Torah, and to see patterns and ideas that can really inspire. And of course, Parsha Noah, which of course is part of this week, is my Bar Mitzvah Parsha. It's the one Parsha, thank you. I think around this room there was at least two people who were at my Bar Mitzvah in Kingsbury in 1984. What I'm saying, not here, in this room. In this room, there's at least two who were there. And you always like to think of your Bar Mitzvah boy or your Bar Mitzvah person as a hero. Noah was my guy. And of course, Chazal aren't so potentially kind to Noah, and certain things we're going to look into. But I think I want to first focus on the Seder itself and two major incidents that happen. Obviously, the main part, which we know about, the flood, the Mabul, the Dor Mabul, but then, of course, the Dor Flood. Towards the end of the Parsha in Shavi. Again, sounds like I really know the Parsha, just because I know it out once I can send Shavi. When we talk about the Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel, and what happened there. And Rabbi Sachs speaks about how these two events in Noach talk about two completely different societal problems. The first one, Dor HaMabul, is complete decadence, complete hedonism. We read the Medrashim in terms of what was going on there, in terms of the drunken debauchery and the sort of real lack of any moral fiber amongst the Dor HaMabul, which caused eventually Hashem to say, I have to destroy the world in that level. And then Dor HaFlag, of course, we know was a totalitarian regime where everybody had to basically march to the same tune, build the tower. And of course, we know that if you fell off the tower and died, that wasn't a tragedy. It was a tragedy if you didn't get your bricks in place, build the tower. Megillah Shemaima. So what's that got to do with the 21st century, or the where we are at the moment in time? And I think very much we are living through both those eras. An era of moral ineptitude, of moral decay. That is the Dor HaMabul, and then of course there's also the totalitarianism within our society. And by the way, I'm not talking about Putin and whoever the Korean and China. I'm talking about within our world, the world of the Western world, the world of Western Europe, of the UK, of America, Canada. Those worlds are exhibiting both at the same time a moral ineptitude, a moral failings, and a totalitarian sort of tendencies in many areas. So let's understand what's going on and try and come to grips with what we need to do. So the first thing is when you have children, you find yourselves kind of not taking on their interests, but sort of, listening to what they listen to, because you can't help it. And my youngest son has a very similar taste in music to me. Well, my elder son doesn't, but he's more kind of, alternative. My younger son is more standard. I grew up on ABBA, Boney M, the Bee Gees. He kind of has the modern kind of equivalent of those sort of things. So in the car nowadays, by the way, you don't need, there's no need for cassette tapes and CDs. Everything's on Spotify and YouTube Music. You just, so he'll say to me, well, can I play you a song? I think you'll like it. So it's a common thing we have in the car. I say, sure. And again, we do enjoy a mixture of Jewish and non-Jewish music, but he played this song for me. Which again, I liked it was a ballad. It was nice to listen to, But it was really the lyrics that I said to, I said that there's a Joshua in here, I can feel it coming on. And it's a YouTube guy, and this is a new kind of thing in the world today. You have YouTube sensations, people who start their own channels and they get millions and millions of hits. And this guy, whose name is Rumi, I think he's Swedish, maybe IKEA, I don't know. But he's written songs, and this is the one I don't know if he's just released it. It's the one that my son played to me. It's called "We All Go Numb." Okay, and I'm not going to read all the lyrics, but he says, whatever happened to childhood, whatever happened to dreams, whatever happened to memories, whatever happened to me, I was supposed to be better. I was supposed to be true, but I sold out too. Then his chorus is, we all go numb, distract ourselves so we don't see what we've become. I think that's an incredibly powerful idea. And again, he's singing, all these little kids are bopping along to it. Are they actually listening to the words he's saying? The last bit is, we all go numb. You compromise in all you believe in, then you're numb, believe in nothing. And he sings a really like jolly, happy song. We're basically saying that, we're numb. And I think that is a very true emotion of where I think most of the Western world is. You're either an activist and you're angry, or you're just a regular person who's just numb. You just don't know how to deal with what you are seeing around you. It just does not make any sense to you. And then there was a piece that I put in my blog. I don't know how to call it a blog, or I should call it a whatever, my Mizrahi to Torah last week, which I want to read to you, because I think, as I said, it just really hit home of what I'm just problem with WhatsApp. Who did I send it to that I can just read it? Here you go. I sent it to my son. No, I didn't. Then the other son. So here we go. So it was going to come who it was written by, and come how I found it. But basically, I was reading something, and I clicked on an article, and it was about the internet, and it was basically how the internet is killing us slowly. And he writes the following thing. I don't know who he is. I wish I could find credit, but again, I can't find myself. When I looked at this, I luckily copied and pasted it to somebody, so I've still got it. I've no idea where I found it. But it's one of those Substacks, people who just write for a living and write a lot of stuff. Most of it is garbage, but sometimes you can find real nuggets which really make you think. And this was one of them. He said the following: the internet has enabled us to live, for the first time, entirely apart from other people. It replaces everything good in life with a low-resolution simulation. A handful of sugar instead of a meal. Addictive, but empty. Just enough to keep you alive. Our most basic biological drives simply wither in its cold blue light. People cheerfully admit that the internet has destroyed their attention spans. What it's really done away with is your ability to think. Usually when I'm doing something boring but necessary, washing up or walking to the post office, I'll constantly interrupt myself. There's a little Joycean warbling from the back of my brain. Boredom is the dream bird that broods the egg of experience. When I'm illicitly killing time on the internet, there is nothing. The mind does not wander. I'm not even there. That rectangular hole spews out war crimes and cutesy comedies, all of it mixed together into one general purpose informational goo. I remain in its trance, the lifeless scroll twitching against the screen till the sky goes dark and I'm one day closer to the end. You lose hours to what? An endless slideshow of barely interesting images and actually unpleasant text. Oh, cool, more memes. It's all very boring, brooding nothing, but the internet addicts you to your own boredom. I've tried heroin. This is worse. More numb, more blank, more nowhere. A portable suicide booth, a device for turning off your entire existence. Death is no longer waiting for you at the far end of life. It eats away your short span from the inside out. Again, very uplifting and very powerful piece, but I think very true. And I think one of the things we are protecting, I wrote about this last week, is because we have Shabbat and Yom Tov. I think those days allow us to kind of have, and no offense to people watching here, that's fine, it's okay, but it allows us to have that interaction away from that kind of non-stop bombardment from these rectangular hellholes that I'm using to give my shit. But now let's focus on a fascinating Rashi, which I think can also shed light on what we're dealing with here. And everyone knows the Rashi, which is beginning to say, Noach ish sadik, tamimi abadoratav. Rashi picks up and says, what does it mean in his generation? And Rashi says, Yesh Mamatenu Doshim Oto Lishvach. They sort of took it to his praise. Culture again, how much more shows Ilu Hayabadot Sadiq? Meaning, in his generation, he was righteous. Imagine to be righteous in that decadent generation. If he lived in a righteous generation, he'd have been like, unbelievable. However, the Yesh Doshim Oto Leganai, but there are those who actually do it for his negative. The Fido Hayad Sadik. In his generation, yes, he was a tzaddik. Velo Hayabadosh Abraham. If he'd been another generation, it wouldn't have been anybody. Of course, the question on that Rashi is it's not what's the word? Mirror image. The first bit he says, if he was a Bedot Tzaddikim, if he was in a righteous generation. What are you thinking? You're thinking Abraham. So say it. Say Koshken Abraham. You're Tzaddik Yotze. But he doesn't say Dot Tzaddikim. But in the letter of Gnai, doesn't say if he was in the Dor Shel Tzaddikim. It says Dor Shel Abraham. So the question is, why didn't he say either Tzaddik or Avraham? Why is the fact he says when it comes to the Shvach, he says Dor Tzaddikim? When it comes to Dor Gnai, he actually says Avraham. We have to understand what's going on in Parshat Noach and what's happened. And again, this is something that we have to understand modern psychology to work out what's going on here. Because what happens to Noach? Noach is the man who is surrounded by this moral decadence, okay, by this sort of what we see today. And what's his reaction? He's numb to a certain extent, yes, but he also is trying to stay fast to morality. He's trying to be what he needs to be. And no, he's told by Hashem, I'm going to save you, your wife, your kids, and so on and so forth, get into the ark and so on and so forth. And he builds the ark. He builds an ark which is symbolic of protecting yourself from everything around you. So he gets into this ark and he survives and everyone else dies. You can imagine, says Rabbi Sachs, what Noach is like after the Mabul, when he comes out of the ark and everybody is dead. The whole world has been destroyed. He's the only survivor. You can imagine the PTSD. He's been through a traumatic thing. He has seen the world destroyed. And again, we know from the Midrashim, in understanding the Midrashim, it wasn't that people went quietly. They mocked him, yes. But as the rain is rising, what did the rabbi say happened? They knocked on the ark. Let us in, we're going to die. To hear that, and you're a person of morality, you're a good person. Okay, whether or not you could be better or worse, Sadiq, Russian, but you're the one Hashem has chosen to save humanity. You're obviously a decent person. Hashem says, no, you can't open the ark. You've got to let those people die. He's hearing the cries of, I don't know how many hundred people, bang, let us in. You're then floating alone for 40 days, 40 nights, looking after animals. I mean, again, we see it as someone reading a parsha, but this person is a human being. It's tough. Say Chazal, he was numb. He got drunk. You can't blame him for shishing. I can blame him for all the names. It's very tough to lay. But, you can't blame him for shishing. He's been through everything. He's the patriarch. He's the one who was chosen, and this is what is left. He gets drunk. And then the whole thing with his sons and so on and so forth. Why does Rashi say about the first and second? Because understand what happens at the end of the parsha. As the Tower of Babel is being built, we know in terms of you look at Seder Olam, work it out. Avram is born in 1948. On the Jewish day, 1948. Noach dies in 1996. Noach was around for Avram's last 58 years of his life. Quite ironically, Noach was 58. Rashi is saying the second one to his Ganai because it happened. Noach lived at Avram's generation. He didn't do anything. Now, again, we're not blaming him, though. If you look at the Haftorah, May Noach, it talks about the waters of Noach. It's blaming Noach for the flood. What could he have done? And of course, there's many answers about this. The answer, of course, that Noach could have protested. Moshe Rabbeinu, that famously says that when he was told that the Jewish people were going to be destroyed, he said, "Macheni na mesifrecha, wipe me out from your book." And again, the Arizal points out, "Macheni na" is backwards is ani Noach mem. There's some sort of repair tikkun happening here. X many years ago, you promised you were going to wipe people out, a nation out, the world out. No one protested. I'm going to protest. Of course, Avram protests in next week's parasha about Sodom. You can't destroy. How can you sort of righteous with the wicked? Noach doesn't protest. Rashi has a little thing on him, and Chazal also. Not to blame him, because you can't judge people. You don't know what it was like at that time. But there's an understanding in the Noah. That's not what we should do. If we see things happening that are wrong, we should stand up and protest. We say that's not right. That's not correct. Now we move on to the second part of our parsha, with that understanding of what Avraham did and what Noah did. Noah stayed quiet. He stayed shtum during Melech, during Dor Haflaga, and what eventually led to and everything. Avraham did not stay silent. Avraham protested. Avraham got involved and obviously got himself thrown into fiery furnace, all sorts of things. But he was willing to stand for what he believed in and to see the wrong, the evil that was being done around the world. What today is happening, and to me, the moral ineptitude of Dor Hamabel, that's been going on since the 60s. Nothing new. No chidushim that the Western world is a bit decadent, a bit morally directionless. It's going to be worse. It's gathering a pace, but it started sort of way back then. But this totalitarianism, that's new. This idea that if you have an opinion that is different from what the mainstream says, be silenced. It's shocking. And I mean, what is even more shocking is that the actual things we're trying to fix. For example, this terrible thing. I don't know. Thank God here at the NHS have now gone to common sense. I don't know if you saw the Tavistock Clinic in London that was doing some horrendous operations on children. It really, if you read down, it's shocking what has been happening under people's watches. The NHS has stopped it and says, no, from now on, we've got to have doctors and clinicians to judge each case and see what's going on as should be. But what's happening in so much of these gender wars, who is actually suffering is actually women and children. The things that what we're trying to do is trying to make sure everyone feels comfortable. We end up actually causing tremendous discomfort and tremendous pain and harm to so many people. So again, the idea of Dor Haflaga was they had this ideal. You thought, they're trying to build this tower to reach Hashem. No, they weren't. They were just trying to make everyone fit their totalitarian regime. And if you didn't fit it, off the tower you go. Same thing with climate. Again, climate is a horrendously important thing. But again, it's been taken over by alarmism and this which is damaging the world. You've got to understand it. We've got to find a balance. You can't just suddenly shut everything down, and then we'd have no heat. They said if we actually follow through some of these climate ideals for this climate alarmism, millions would die of they freeze. We've got to find a balance. You've got to keep the fires burning and find that balance. But it's the same idea. You can't speak out against it. Avram Avinu, the famous medrash, of course, from next week, when he smashes the idol, you learn as a kid. What's the kid medrash telling you? Dad, how can you be so stupid? Of course the idols can't speak. Of course the idols can't move. And we all know as a kid, we've got our idols today. And people who speak out against it are vilified for just speaking common sense. Who are the heroes today? Who are the Avrams today in the Western world? J.K. Rowling, who has been absolutely vilified for just speaking common sense. Sharon Davies today, as you read it in the newspaper, is saying to Sebastian Coe, just you are destroying women's sport. You can't have women's sport. It's mad. Just use common sense. Andrew Doe was the one who went underground with Antifa, with the riots, to say to people, like, this is not helping black people. This is killing black people. You want to help black people? Don't create riots, which is going to cause more damage to the country and more damage to people. It's mad. You speak out against this, you are vilified as a whatever you want to call yourself. Matt Walsh is somebody that you've heard of in America. What a tremendous hero, speaking out against this ridiculous understanding of defining what a woman is. It's madness what is happening. All in the name of progress, all in the name of sort of the way we have to be, and so on and so forth. And you realize that it's the same thing. It's the Dor Haflaga. It's building a tower for no other reason than to just sort of, I don't know, build something that makes you look good. But at the end of the day, it's damaging to the world. And to me, our job is we have to speak up. Obviously, as I said, that's been recorded and go around the world, and I'll be counseled that speak out against the truths of the world today. But I look at both. I look at Dor Mabel and Dor Haflaga. What worries me more today is Dor Haflaga. Dor Mabel, we're used to it as Jews. We're used to the morality, and we find our ways within our communities, within our shuls, to shelter ourselves. And obviously, said we have Shabbat, we have Chagim, we have community, we have shul. It's amazing. Dor Haflaga, that is affecting millions. Today's Rosh Chodesh, and I always think of something on Rosh Chodesh for a crazy reason. In the Saks Siddur, Rosh Chodesh laning is on page 911. Every Rosh Chodesh, I'm reminded of 9/11. It's a crazy thing since I don't know how long. When I first saw it, it's 9/11. There you go. And I think we all think of 9/11 as the biggest tragedy of modern times. It was, it will live in infamy and what it did. But in many ways, we could say that that was a physical destruction of 3,000 lives and how many other countless lives because of that. And Islamic terrorism has claimed many more lives. But to me, that is not the greatest threat to the Western world. The greatest threat to the Western world today is Dor HaFlaga, is what is happening to millions and millions of people, confusing young people in a horrendous way. We have to be thankful that we have our heroes who are willing to speak up and risk being cancelled by the mainstream and so on and so forth. And there really is a fight developing within the culture that is both sort of seeing what is happening, both with the numbness and the internet of one side, and on the other side of this sense of trying to control everybody by all thinking the same way. Fascinating, says Rabbi Sachs, that these two ideas, and by the way, his book Morality, it's the last book he wrote before he was Nifta, it's an unbelievable read on a lot of these issues. But to realize that the Torah is warning us straight as dawn of time in Parshat Noah about these two diametrically opposed threats of hedonism and totalitarianism. And what is crazy is in the same world today, we can read about those both in the same breath. Both are a threat, both are dangerous. Our job is to say, let's make sure we merit to be a Noach, to be saved from the moral decadence, but also be an Avraham to speak up at the totalitarian regimes that seem to stop us thinking and feeling and being who we need to be.
Thank you very much for that. I'll say goodbye to those on Zoom. We'll see you again next week, and then we'll finish off our what's the name? Our session this morning. Right, let's turn it up. I'll do